How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon joining me, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Welcome to the NFL Draft Day, baby. It's going to be a great weekend. I love it. It's the best time of the year. The weather has turned. We now can focus our attention exclusively on the Detroit Lions with some passive thoughts on the Red Wings and the Detroit Tigers. But this is the weekend where all the draft experts sit around and they rate and review what the teams are going to do over the next 4 days. It's really important, especially this year, 2019, for the Detroit Lions to hit on a lot of these draft picks because it could lay the foundation for some successful years, or it could start the process of really sending the Detroit Lions down a road of no return, where they cannot come back from. If you miss on a couple draft classes, you basically are going to look at a regime change where there's no Bob Quinn, no Matt Patricia, and starting this thing all over again.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Bob Quinn messes up on this draft, he could be finding himself in the unemployment line very soon, and that means Matt Patricia gets broomed out as well. And it's like we go through this whole process all over again. But no doom and gloom here. No doom and gloom. All right, because this right here is the Detroit Lions Super Bowl, baby. And hopefully one day this leads to us actually playing in a freaking Super Bowl.
Hey, we'll take just getting to the playoffs, but stay tuned. Second half of the podcast, we are going to kind of recap the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, their embarrassing performance in the NBA playoffs. So we want to recap that. We want to talk about really a weird sense of how some fans are acting with the Pistons and how some media are responding to Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond. A lot to get into there because it wasn't just your average 4-game sweep. It was a destruction. It was one in which you probably won't see.
Dismantled.
It was a dismantling. So we'll talk about the NFL draft in the second half of the podcast.
Can we work something in? I know I don't have it on the rundown here, and I just thought about it. I don't know why it slipped my mind. Later on in the podcast, maybe at the very, very end, can we just briefly touch on the Steve Yzerman hiring for the Red Wings?
Hell yeah.
Awesome.
Of course we're going to talk about it. It's a situation in which everyone's excited. I did get a chance, and we'll tease it to the end of the podcast. On Tuesday, obviously, like I tell everybody, Imagine Theater has great prices, great ticket prices, free popcorn. So I went and saw the Bob Probert documentary.
Ooh.
Really good.
Was
really
it?
Sad, too.
Yeah.
If you're a parent and you see what he went through and stuff like that, the opening 5 minutes was unbelievable. It was awesome. So stay tuned for that, as well as our draft coverage. So we got a lot to get to on this podcast. But obviously, it wasn't too much of a surprise that the Pistons got their ass kicked. What was a surprise to me was the fact that the Detroit Pistons were not able to cover the spread in any of the games.
It seemed like
what was a surprise to me was that the Bucks were able to cover the spread in every game. The Pistons were destroyed. It was unbelievable that when you look at double-digit spreads, and they kept going up too. Usually the line would start at 10 or 11 and then would go to 12, 13, and the Bucks still covered. The Bucks were unbelievably dialed in. Even in Game 4, when you had a scenario in which you kind of came out with some fire and you had a lead, midway through the second quarter, it just wasn't going to be a situation in which the Pistons were going to have success. And Game 3 probably was the highlight of the mess for the Pistons. Everybody was excited. I was down there. It was a great atmosphere, but unfortunately, Andre Drummond really let everybody down. And in the end, the Pistons playing the Bucks was the worst thing for them. And unfortunately, they got broomed out. So they are the new record holders of futility in the playoffs, 14 consecutive playoff losses. They hold the record to themselves. Good job, Detroit Pistons. And so I'll ask you, based on what you saw in totality, a 41-41 season, eventually ending the year with 41 wins, 45 losses, a sweep in the playoffs, getting destroyed by the Bucks, you now know what it's going to take I think you're nowhere closer to being successful and competing with the Bucks than you were starting the year. So unfortunately, it's a disaster, and I don't find the season to be successful.
You actually might be further behind the 8 ball than you were when the season started. You've seen what it takes for you to get there, to get to 41-41, to get to 500, and to creep in as the eighth seed. Blake Griffin had to be He-Man on this team. He had to carry this team. And you've seen what carrying this team did. It destroyed his knee. Like, I've got nothing but respect for Blake Griffin. The guy was out there on one wheel, hobbling around the court. His leg was taped up. It was bandaged up. He had a sleeve on his knee that stretched from his groin all the way down to his ankle. On top of that, he had the robo knee contraption that offensive linemen wear, trying to keep that thing stabilized. And that's from carrying this team all season long. And he was out there trying to give you his absolute best. So nothing but respect for Blake.
Now,
but this team is in no position to do anything right now.
I want to read you this list of Blake Griffin's history of injuries. Broken kneecap, meniscus tear, partially torn quad, knee bone bruises, sprained knee, sprained hamstring, back stress fracture, right elbow staph infections, broken right hand. Those are the list of injuries for this guy. And if you go back in history and you just Google Blake Griffin Clippers curse, the Clipper fans were befuddled because every year, seemingly, they would get to the postseason. You would have a situation in which CP3 and Blake Griffin were the centerpieces. And unfortunately, Blake Griffin would get injured at the worst possible time each and every season. That's why they didn't commit to him. And so this is the guy that you committed all this money to. Now, great. He is a guy that you can look to as a box office guy, but in the end, he's unreliable. And that's unfortunate because he got a lot of love in the media. The fans absolutely love him because he's the best player on the team. He's the total package.
He is. Let's just put this out there. He's a great player.
He's a great player.
But his body betrays him. If you go back, just that list that you named, besides the hand injury where he punched the trainer in the face, and the elbow with the staph infection, right? So it means he probably got cut and got infected. It happens. I've had staph infections. It's what it is. All right, besides those two, everything goes back to that rookie season where he fractured that kneecap. If you look at everything, fractured kneecap, meniscus tear, quad tear, hamstring injury, these are all things that basically are dealt with that knee. And he's changed the way he walks, changed the way he plays. It all has something to do. It all ties in. He's damaged goods. And that being said, he's your best chance to do anything in this league. Because Andre Drummond isn't the deal. You've seen Andre Drummond is not a centerpiece. He's not a guy you can build around. He needs to be a third or fourth option on a team. And look, Andre Drummond's had one of his best seasons of his career too. He was no longer a liability at the foul line. He was able to do things in and around the basket. The problem is he's a dinosaur. He has no outside game. And when he's not invested and he's not committed to playing, he's just the body out there. The guy's not banging for rebounds. You know what frustrated me the most watching this series unfold? It was watching the guys not go up for offensive rebounds. Nobody is around the basket when somebody's chucking a three. And it's rimming out, or it's hitting the backboard, or in Reggie Jackson's case, just completely missing. There's nobody around there to grab a rebound. There's nobody for Milwaukee to box out. Milwaukee just gets the ball, turns up, and next thing you know, it's an odd man break going the other way. There is no commitment to doing the little things, doing the small things, doing the detail, grinded out work on this team. This team is soft. This team does not play with the necessary edge. And I don't know if that's Dwayne Casey's fault, or I don't know if it's just these players. And this is the problem with making the playoffs at 41-41 and then getting blown out by Milwaukee. All right? You don't do yourself any good because now you have no shot at getting one of those magic ping pong balls. There's a ton of talent in this draft, a ton of it. But you know what? It's all at the very, very top. You can say, look at Giannis. Look at Giannis. He was great. He was drafted 15th overall. He is the exception. He's not the rule. When have the Pistons ever stumbled upon something that was magical late in the draft? I'm waiting. Get back to me. Send me a tweet. You listen to this. Get back to me. Tweet me at AdamRSTROZ. All right? I'll respond. I'll wait for it because I know I'm going to be 100 years old before you can find something. They haven't been able to find something special in the draft. Luke Kennard looks good, right? He looks like a really good player, but you know what? He's a really good player on a bad team. He should be your 4th or 5th option as well as Andre Drummond. Blake Griffin is a great player. Blake Griffin's body betrays him on the regular. You can't necessarily build around him, and I get it that you want to, but you need something else, and you know how you get that something else? You get that through the draft because no free agents want to come here.
Here's the part that's frustrating to me is people, when they're making their decisions, they want to go with the notion that, oh, Blake's such a professional. After the end of the season presser, he went around and shook everybody's hand and wished everybody a great summer. Great. He's a true pro. He's a stand-up guy. He knows how to answer questions, and he's very accessible with the media. That's fine. But that doesn't preclude someone from saying, look, the Pistons were the 8th seed because of Blake Griffin. Okay, and some will say, well, why didn't Andre Drummond step up? I'm not expecting Andre Drummond to step up. Why would I expect that? I would never expect that. I want him out. Okay, Blake Griffin, when he was available, the Pistons were in the 6th seed. He then gets hurt at the worst possible time. So what happens? The Pistons slide, and nobody stepped up, and they fall to the 8th seed. So is it Blake Griffin's fault that the Pistons, got broomed in the postseason? Yes, it's his fault. When your best player,
I don't know if it's his fault. He is your best player, right?
It's his fault. If he's not there, then it's a big problem.
But look, we both knew, right? If they had to match up and they got into the 8th seed, right? They faced Milwaukee.
It was done. Yes, it's a wrap.
There was no chance.
So you don't want to be in the 8th seed.
Their goal was to either be a 6 or a 7 and have a chance to be able to compete.
Heaven forbid be a 5 or a 4 seed,
right?
Too.
It would be great, right? So I look at the rest of these guys. Andre Drummond is a max player. Andre Drummond wants this to be his team, right? Where's Andre Drummond? Why doesn't he step up? Reggie Jackson.
He can't.
Reggie Jackson forced his way out of Oklahoma City because he thought he was the man. Where was Reggie Jackson? Why didn't he take over any games? How come Ish Smith is the better point guard for this team? Where's everybody else? Where is everybody? Nobody else steps up. Honestly, I said it in the beginning. Blake carried this team. Blake gets hurt because he's carrying the entire franchise on his back. All right? Where is somebody else to help carry that load? Where's somebody else to help with that burden? Where is Andre Drummond?
Right.
Why is Andre Drummond having dinner at Paul Corvino's house during the week? Why? If you guys don't know who Paul is, Paul's like my big boss, okay?
Right.
He's like the head dude in charge of iHeartMedia Detroit. Why is he hanging out at Paul's house sliding down his bat pole?
Guess why?
Why? That's not good. That's not cool. You should be focused. You should be going over plays, finding out what weaknesses are of the competition that you have coming up. No, instead, you want to go drink wine and hang out with my boss. Get the hell out of here.
And listen.
I get it. Paul's a great guy. Paul's great. Paul's got stories for days.
I'll tell you this, okay? Look, it's a situation in which you say, okay, you give Blake Griffin credit for the season that he had, but at the same time, you also have to say he is the leader of the team. He's the best player, and unfortunately, this is what you can count on. This is why when he was signed, people were like, when's he going to get injured?
Both of us were apprehensive with that
Now,
signing.
this season, it was after, and so this season was the worst possible time. After 75 games, when you were right there in the spot to position yourself to play a team that maybe you can compete with in Toronto or Indiana or Boston, no, you slid down because Blake Griffin was not available. And so I asked the question, and unfortunately, rare times I regret asking a question in this way, and then I messed up one word. I asked, are you mad at Blake Griffin? And everyone's like, why would you be mad at Blake Griffin? When I really probably, like I said, I don't really think too much. I just type it, and it goes out there. The question that I really meant to ask was, are you mad that Blake Griffin got injured? Okay, nobody's mad at Blake Griffin. He's the best player on the team. I'm mad that he got hurt, okay? And I'm mad that he's a guy that's going to get all this money, and eventually the facts would indicate and will tell you that you should set yourself up for heartbreak. That next year, the Pistons will be maybe 45 wins in, and they'll be the 6th seed, and then he'll get hurt the first game of the playoffs. That's just what we know. Or he'll get hurt when we're 2 games up playing really well. That's what's going to happen. Yeah. The likelihood of Blake carrying you guys is tough because here's the thing. Here's the problem, okay? And here's why Dwayne Casey was trying to sell us a bill of goods. All right, he's like, oh, it's so good for us to get in the playoffs. We learn now what it takes. Okay, fine. You know who learned? Andre and Luke Kennard, because the rest of that roster is getting their ass shipped. Okay, Ish Smith, he's gone. He's not going to be here.
You can't bring
Reggie
him back.
Jackson, likely going to be traded. You're going to pray some team wants expiring contracts and takes Langston Galloway and John Lure. the idea is now the Pistons are rebuilding. They are going to blow these guys out. This roster will not be the same.
They have to.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to.
Because...
This goes back to the bigger argument and the bigger question. Was this season a success? And the answer is overwhelmingly no, because you hurt yourself going forward. You have no shot at adding more talent through the draft. You're going to blow this up. It's going to be totally different next year, right? It has to be, because you don't have the money to bring some of these guys back. Ish Smith, like I said, is your best point guard on this team. You function and you move the ball the best when he is on the court, not when Reggie is. And guess who's not going to be able to be re-signed? Ish isn't. Guess who has to get traded because he's I don't want to say he's a locker room cancer. He's not a good fit, and I don't think there's any leadership skill with Reggie Jackson.
Exactly.
He's got to go away.
He's got to go. They need a traditional point guard, and that's why you're hearing talks of Kemba Walker, Mike Conley. You need a better fit, a guy that will step up and actually fit the system that Dwayne Casey wants to run.
Right.
And that's what it is. This is not a fit. We can say that, and for those that support the team and things like that. Okay, fine. Now I want to ask you this, because obviously the big buzz that was generated was after Game 3. And here's why it was so frustrating, okay? The tough part of that was everybody was excited. They were ready to cheer. The fans supported the Pistons. They went down there to cheer, to get excited, to see a venue with a bunch of fans in it, to see the Pistons compete, right? And what happened? One of the players that's making a boatload of money really had some defensive lapses, struggled with confidence after he missed some bunnies, and the fans got on him. And Andre Drummond in Game 3, that was an opportunity for you to step your game up. The game. And unfortunately, there are rare opportunities for a player to step up on a stage when a bunch of people are watching, because a lot of those fans weren't there the entire season watching. That was probably their first or second game of the year. They're like, okay, the Pistons are in the playoffs. Let's see what this is about. Let's check out LCA. And what ended up happening, when he would leave the game, the crowd would cheer. When he was in the game missing bunnies and not boxing out and not getting rebounds and things like that. Now, some will say that was intentional. They wanted Giannis to shoot threes and things like that. Fine. If you want to say that, you want to take that narrative that it wasn't Andre Drummond's fault, why is Chauncey Billups then going on national television and calling out Andre Drummond? Okay? Because think about that for 1 second. If Chauncey Billups, with his platform, okay, you think he's just going to observe a couple clips and then just say it? No. Chauncey has sources within that organization. Come on, think about it. Chauncey is not just showing up to the Palace.
He was a cornerstone of this organization.
He's not showing up to LCA, having a latte, and then just sitting there testing his microphone. He's walking around. He's talking to some assistants, talking to some scouts, maybe even talking to Dwayne Casey, and they're sending a message through Chauncey Billups. They did that, okay? So him dropping that bomb was really interesting, and I think was indicative of why the fans reacted that way too, because they all saw it with their eyes. They're like, what's this guy doing? He can't make a bunny? He can't dunk the basketball? And both Reggie and Andre missed a dunk, and it was an epic miss on both of their parts. So in that scenario, I felt like it was fair to boo Andre Drummond. I think in sports, it's okay to boo. It's not soft. It's not a bad take, because cheering didn't help. So at the same time, we all booed because of the fact that, what are we watching here? This is a game you should be going all out for. And if you are struggling on the offensive side, the one thing you can control is your effort on defense. Okay, so a lot of the fans turned on Andre Drummond, and I don't think they're coming back. I don't think they're going to be supporters of Andre throughout his tenure, because of the fact that until he shows consistent defensive effort, until he revolutionizes his offensive game and adds a couple moves, up and unders, jump shot, until he looks like Brook Lopez, who's being paid way less than Andre, then I think that Andre Drummond's going down the road of Matthew Stafford. The fans don't like him. And look, is he a bust? No. Is he a garbage player? No, he has some value. But we're rating him at the price that he's paid. We are rating the fact that he's been in the league for quite a while. We're rating the fact that with Andre Drummond on this roster, big fat goose egg in terms of playoff wins. And when you need him to step up, he's not the guy. He's not a leader.
When the lights are the brightest, he tends to play his smallest game, and that's a problem. And you're right. It's not so much that he's a bust or he's a bad player. He is being paid as one of the top guys. This team is being built around him, and yet he is more of a role player. He's more of a situational guy. You can't depend on him. You can't count on him, and that's a big problem.
And I love the basketball supporters of the Detroit Pistons, the Detroit Bad Boy website, Piston Powered. I like what they say. They got in the mix. They replied back to me, and they said, look, the reason why Blake had a lot of success was the lane opened up for him because of the presence of Andre Drummond. That's fine. okay? I understand that he's the best in the pick and roll, and he's a big body, and he can get rebounds and extra possessions. No problems, okay? But fundamentally speaking, to change the argument, I don't want to play this way. I don't want to play pick and roll. I want to play a scenario in which you maybe play an up-tempo style of game, find shooters that, hey, when Langston Galloway has an open shot, he makes it.
More of a pick and pop.
Exactly. More of a scenario that is in line with what's going on in today's NBA, which is, hey, sometimes you got to be versatile and play different styles. And I don't think Andre's adept at doing that.
No.
I feel like Andre's locked into the role that he's in, and obviously Dwayne Casey's bringing in something new, and he was asked to do a little bit more. But can he evolve an offensive game? Can he do a little bit more in terms of what he brings to the table? I don't think so. Great. He improved his free throws. Great. He's a rebounding wizard. He brings, something different. But at the same time, I don't think that what you're going to get out of Andre Drummond is what we're looking for here. That's just the way it is. And so those that say, hey, well, if you guys keep trashing him, then who else is going to take him? Look. Other general managers will find a use for him and actually believe that they can evolve his skill. They can maybe they have an expert big man specialist that is really got a big ego and say, I can turn that guy into Shaq. I can turn that guy into. You just need one team to give you that first rounder and a somewhat of an expiring contract. And hey, we have an opportunity. Just one team.
Dude, there were 2 offers for Andre Drummond. We have some audio. Let's cue up the Goris audio on nixing the Andre Drummond trade. I mean, when there is an offer out there to get this guy, and especially at his contract, and by moving him, you free up a ton of cap space so you can go do other things and bring other guys in. You could totally revolutionize the way your team is playing and what your team is doing fundamentally. I mean, at this point, you now have 2 bigs that have locked in so much of your salary cap, you're kind of stuck. Yet Tom Gores, the owner of this franchise, is butt buddies with Andre Drummond. And because of that, he says, no, we can't trade him away. Just listen to this audio after Game 4, after the Pistons have been swept out of the playoffs.
It was interesting talk.
Just listen to this, because his answer leads you to believe that there was something more, that there's something else there, that there was a trade offer made, and yet he said no.
There were thoughts that there was 2 possible trades for Andre Drummond that you nixed. Why did you nix those 2 trades?
Oh, I don't want to discuss that, Ryan. And that's not probably you probably have the facts wrong.
And that's Rhonda Moss from WDFN. So shout out to Rhonda. She does great work. Look, you have the facts wrong? Well, okay, cool. So what are the facts? Let's talk about it. Tell me what's going on. Explain to me what happened, because it's out there. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody says that this is what happened. Oh, no. You have the facts. Okay, well, set it straight. Set the record straight. Tell me what exactly happened. Let me know what was offered. You don't have to go into great detail, but give me something, because what you're telling me there, it really sounds like there were 2 offers that were made, and you said, no, that's my boy. That's the dude who I like to go have dinner with, and that's the guy who I like to hang out with, because Andre's good people. But he's fun.
Okay, what if it's not exactly true? What if the true scenario is that an offer was made and it was nixed, but not because they're boys and they're butt buddies, but because of the fact that the offer that was made was ridiculous. Like, we're going to give you a 2nd rounder, and we're going to give you a guy that represents Reggie Jackson.
Okay, that's cool. Then say that. Then say
we got
that.
Garbage offers.
Yeah. Say. But what was presented to us at the time was not good enough. We wanted more. And let us know. Say it was a second round pick, and it was a player who didn't fit our scheme. He wasn't going to make an impact on this roster.
But now knowing
say that.
Now knowing how Andre is, in that he's a little bit sensitive, because obviously
dude, he's so soft between the ears.
So it's one of those scenarios in which everyone knows that teams are calling about Andre. And so I think that Tom Gores and the organization wants to avoid the talk that, hey, yes, we're entertaining offers, and we'd maybe try to negotiate him to get out. I think that's what probably the facts are. Yeah, he did nix the trades, but not because they're butt buddies. That he felt like, you know what, I made this investment, that I think that in a couple years he can turn it around and be a piece, and we need this. We need like a 1st rounder. We need a guy that can be, really offensively we need a guy that can really come in here and help and be somebody that can contribute to this team. So I think it wasn't enough. And obviously he's trying to do some, public relations and some spin here so that Andre doesn't really feel like, oh, they're trying to trade me, because I think that Andre's a little bit sensitive and that he isn't a guy that wants to hear his name in trade rumors. So they just say, look, no, that's just not the case. And behind the scenes, the phone's ringing off the hook, but they're just saying no a lot.
Okay, listen. If you're the general manager of this team, right, or you're even Tom Gorge, you're the owner of this team, is there any untouchables on this team? Is there anybody who you're like, I'm not trading none of these guys?
Right, no.
The only guy who I would maybe hesitate would be Blake. And even then, you've laid out the case and you've made the argument. He's injury prone all the time. So, hell yeah, take his ass.
Let him go.
I mean, everybody. And you can't trade away this entire team because you need somebody to go out there and play. But, I mean, Jesus Christ, guys. Like, the way this team is constructed right now, the salary cap structure, it's so top-heavy, it limits you from doing anything impactful, and you don't have the draft commodities to really add impactful players or guys who you can grab, plug in, and they're going to start for you and they're going to do something.
So, cuz I think before we wrap up the Pistons talk, I want to say this. I think the biggest disconnect right now is the majority of fans don't really like this team as constructed. They want the Detroit Pistons finally to acknowledge, you know what? We are nowhere near the NBA title. We are nowhere near championship caliber. We are starting today square one.
Yep.
Everybody's available for a trade. We're taking offers. We are going to deconstruct and actually rebuild. Now, what they're doing is they're going to rebuild with Blake Griffin. I think that doesn't lead to potential championship because he hasn't done it. So in 4 years, when you get the productive players, when Svi and Thon Maker are 25 years old, and then you can add successful pieces in the draft, Blake will be 34 years old. Is a 34-year-old Blake Griffin going to lead you deep in the playoffs? So that's why it doesn't add up. Okay, yes, the scenario in which the Pistons are rebuilding, most people don't believe. That's the fact. Most people believe, okay, they're already jumping ahead. They're saying, okay, you guys are going to rebuild, and here's your plan to rebuild. You're going to slowly in a year get rid of all these bad contracts and bring in pieces to support Andre Drummond and Blake Griffin, okay, and Luke Kennard. I think if you just say that and you hear it more and more and you replay it, you go back and you hit that back button and replay it. You want to build a team around Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, and Luke Kennard. You just can't. You can't sell that.
Right.
And it might be wrong. Maybe Luke Kennard can be a guy that averages 18 points and is a leader. But in this mix here with the Pistons, can you surround them with enough talent? I think currently the belief level is no. So then what the majority of fans want is we have a Detroit Piston team in name alone, and we want 12 new guys, and we want them all to be super young and talented, and we want then in 5 years tell us, okay, now we've got this young core of guys that we've built through the draft with top 15 picks, and now we're going to add a real superstar who's age 26. We're going to add somebody that's been drafted maybe this year that's not happy with his team that can come in here and be that final piece. Nobody believes. Now, they like to see Blake Griffin work hard, but behind the scenes, when they're not public, they'll be like, oh, no, Blake Griffin's a bust.
See, the problem is the way this offense is set up, it has to run through Blake, right? You don't have a point guard, right? Reggie Jackson is not the guy who's going to get it done for you. And you've already seen Blake Griffin can't play the amount of minutes that is needed of him every single game. He just, honestly, his body's not equipped to do it. He breaks down. And you've seen what happens when you don't have Blake. So you've got to adjust the way this team is constructed, the way this team is built. You need to get a point guard in this mix. Luke Kennard is not your point guard. He's your shooting guard. He's your J.J. Redick. He is J.J. Redick. And I love J.J. Redick, but you know what J.J. Redick is? He's a third or fourth piece. He's not your number one. He's not your number two. You know? Blake can give you really meaningful minutes, and he can take over a game, but he can't do it every single game. He needs days off. He needs to be on a time limit. He can't be out there giving you 38 minutes every single night. It just doesn't work that way for the guy. His body's not equipped to handle it. And Andre, I really don't know what Andre is at this point. He's been in the league so damn long. You have really no clue where he fits or what he's going to do or what he can even what he can even give you as far as a piece to build around. Because, like you said, when the lights are the brightest, he doesn't show up. He disappears.
And that's where I'm at with the Pistons.
You can't build around guys like that.
Yeah, you can't build around this, and I think everyone knows it's going to lead to failure. Everyone knows in advance it's going to lead to failure, and that's why nobody comes out to the arena. That's why attendance is really bad. It's everybody's already prejudging what's going to happen. Nobody has faith.
This team had 2 games to show you what it could be. And you know what? In Game 4, they looked really, really good for 2 quarters. And then the third quarter happened, and they couldn't get out of their own way. And after that, you lost by double digits every single game.
You would have made a killing if you just listened to the Detroit Sports Podcast. We told you to bet the Bucks to lay the points every single game and the Bucks to sweep. If you did that, you bet 4 games and the Bucks to sweep. You got yourself a good week.
Listen to Shea. Shea knows what he's talking about.
He's up on units. So host of the Wanna Bet podcast comes out every single Wednesday. Follow him on Twitter at @NorlingShea. So for me, trade Andre, trade Reggie, and let's start the process. You obviously know this roster is going to be redone. Some people will say, okay, look, Ish is gone. You're going to have 2 draft picks, and you're going to maybe potentially make a move for a point guard that this will allow the Pistons to have success. All right, you're just more of the same.
I mean, listen, I like what Ed Stefanski did last year with the draft. He was operating on a very short window. I think he did some good things. All that being said, I want to give this guy the best ammunition to go out there and help build a team. And drafting at 15 or 16 doesn't help them.
We'll see what happens this year. If they can hit a home run and Bruce Brown can develop an offensive game, we'll see. But I don't see a championship-level team. That's where I'm at.
I don't either.
If you're going to take this journey, I feel like majority of fans are thinking it's a failure before it even gets off the ground. So that's where you're at. But good luck. Tom Gores is fighting an uphill battle. He does not believe in tanking, so it's not going to happen. He doesn't believe it. And that's a whole other conversation we'll have in the offseason is he the proper owner? Does he have the right guidance whispering things in his ear? Is he doing the right things? We'll talk all about that, especially when it comes time for the NBA draft. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. NFL Draft Talk, Detroit Lions, baby. Draft day. We'll talk about it next. Because I want to tell you about this new app, the Flick Chat app. It's really great. I mean, during sporting events, even tonight during the NFL draft, we're going to be there. And how do you get into this application? How do you join other Detroit fans, other passionate fans that want to break down?
How do we banter back and forth and talk smack to you directly? How do we do that? And how do people call me an idiot because of some of my takes?
Exactly.
In real time.
Go to our various social media platforms. We have an invite link. It's super easy. All you got to do is click the link. It'll take you to the application. You sign up with your email, and boom. All you got to do is click that link, and you're in the Detroit Sports headquarters via Flick. And it's great. It's a new sports forum that allows you to create topics. It allows you to promote your podcast. If you do a sports podcast, you can engage. Like I said, it's new. So we're going to grow it over the next coming months. We're going to have giveaways exclusively for those that are part of the application during any event, like the NFL draft, like the NBA playoffs, the NHL playoffs. If you were screaming and ranting and raving when San Jose got that penalty and put them back in the game, holy cow, and got 3 goals in the third period, you can have conversations live right then, real time with Detroit sports fans, and it's really great. It's a fun application, so definitely check out our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Look for the Detroit Sports Headquarters on the Flick app. It's a good time. Another sponsor of the network, the Motor City Pawn Brokers. Go check out MotorCityPawnBrokers.com to find out all information regarding the great savings that you can have. They got 4 locations all across Metro Detroit, in Roseville, Warren, Ferndale, and the new location there in Detroit on 8 Mile and Gratiot. Look, it's not the same kind of seedy place that you're used to maybe hearing about. No, Mark and the crew over there at the Motor City Pawnbrokers, they make it so that it's a friendly, warm experience. They have great customer service. So go check out if you have needs now in the summertime, if you need a lawnmower, if you need certain tools, go check out what they got there at the 4 locations at the Motor City Pawnbrokers. For all information regarding the Motor City Pawnbrokers, don't hesitate. Go visit MotorCityPawnBrokers.com. Tonight, baby, NFL draft. Everyone's excited. I'm excited. I'm thinking the Detroit Lions, this draft, are going to make an impact. I don't have this vibe of I'm not feeling skeptical about the Lions. I'm feeling good. Now, within 5 minutes, within 8 o'clock, and the Roger Goodell gets booed, I'm like, oh boy, is Bob Quinn going to take a lineman we never heard of? Is Bob Quinn really going to take the tight end? Is he really going to trade down and take the tight end? What's going to happen? So right now, going into the draft, I feel good. I just feel like the Lions are, at least portraying that they're doing the right things, building through defense, building through the trenches. They got a couple running backs that can do the job. They got what they believe is a star quarterback. They got a system in place potentially with Darrell Bevell, who has come from a winning situation. You got the defensive guy. You got the defensive guru, the defensive coordinator from the Patriots. Everything seems to be in place. Okay? Now, in terms of breaking down the draft, everybody's heard, all the names. Some names are going up. Some names are going down. All the misinformation has been spewed. But a couple themes have emerged, and most people, by and large, believe that there's a pretty strong chance the Lions are going to trade back, and there's a pretty strong chance that if they do stay at 8, many people are maybe starting to come around to the idea that the Detroit Lions might take the tight end. If that happens, if they do take the tight end, I want to be positive about it, but I don't think I can because no other team really does that. No other team has this long pattern of taking tight ends in the first round, especially at number 8, especially when you've gone out and targeted that in free agency. So I just don't see Jesse James being paired with TJ Hawkinson. I see maybe the surprise being a lineman on the offense. I see maybe the surprise being a linebacker, somebody that maybe has been under the radar that hasn't visited. But I just think starting off, it's not going to be the tight end. I'm going to say it. You're going to hear it first. Bob Quinn and the Detroit Lions will never write TJ Hawkinson on that draft card. Roger Goodell will not say that name in regards to the Detroit Lions. It won't happen.
I'm right there with you. I'm in lockstep with you.
It won't happen, damn it.
Now, what if, and this could happen, what if Bob Quinn went up there and took another offensive lineman? I mean, he's had 2 drafts now, or he's had 3 drafts now, and 2 of his 3 draft picks in the first round have been offensive linemen. And you got a guy like Jonah Williams, offensive tackle out of Alabama, or you've got a offensive, he projects to be an offensive guard in Jawan Taylor out of Florida. What if either one of these guys were the name that was called at, say, pick 8? If they don't move back, what happens there? Do you lose your mind if they, again, invest in the trenches, but this time on the offensive side?
Then the next meme video that the Detroit Lions Twitter page puts out will have John Macron with a big capital WTF in it. Did you see that video?
I did.
That was good. It was really solid, really creative. But no, in all seriousness, an offensive lineman would be fine, okay, as long as the impact is there. Frank Ragnow was okay, had some struggles, but here's the thing. I just believe that when you look at what the Lions need to do, they need to have somebody that can come right in day one and handle business because it's such a big year. You're teetering literally on this draft really affecting if this team can go from 6 wins to 10.
Absolutely.
If you get a couple guys that contribute right away, no issues, they fit the scheme, they understand what Patricia and Bevell are going to do, and theoretically they fit in, you could have a team that could win 9 games, maybe not get to the playoffs, but could be in a lot of these games. So it's super important. I'm okay with really a lot of names that could be selected. I'm okay with it because a lot of the names seem to be okay at number 8. I kind of hope they do stay at 8 and maybe take a guy like Ed Oliver or maybe take somebody maybe like a Montez Sweat that could.
Ed Oliver's my guy.
Ed Oliver's my guy too.
If Ed Oliver's available at 8, I'm running up to Roger Goodell and I'm like, take him. Like, I don't want anything crazy to happen. Take Ed Oliver. What about this though? What about this scenario? I think we're both in lockstep that Josh Allen could possibly be one of the most impactful guys in this draft. If he, say, falls to number 5, right? If he's out there at number 5, sitting for you to take him, right? And it seems like Tampa Bay is really, really high on Devin White. He's the linebacker out of LSU. I'm not really a fan of Devin White. I think you have a player, maybe a more impactful player, already on this roster as Jared Davis. I think they're a similar type of player, so you don't need another one of those guys. So at number 5, if Tampa Bay is looking at Josh Allen, are you trading up? Would you be opposed to the Lions flip-flopping those first-round picks and then maybe throwing a little something in there as a kicker to go out there and get arguably a guy who looks to be maybe the most impactful and versatile player Because remember, Josh Allen, this is what's special about Josh Allen, and this is something that I really like about the guy. He can play up on the line as an edge rusher. He can fall back into coverage, and he can be a linebacker. He can be a rushing linebacker. He could also do some things in the middle of the line and of that second tier of your defense playing linebacker. The guy is so multifaceted, and he is so equipped to do so many good things. I don't know if I have a problem with them trading up to get this guy. Now, I love Ed Oliver. And I love Ed Oliver at 8. And I'm not 100% sure he falls that far to you. But what I do know is I'm more in love with Josh Allen and what he could bring for this defense.
Ooh, I'm looking at all the mock drafts. Mel Kiper.
I know,
TJ
it's crazy,
Hockenson.
right?
Mel Kiper, TJ Hockenson. No, I'm going to say that the Detroit Lions trade back. They make the move.
Okay,
And
so you're not a fan of them possibly trading up to 5 to get Josh Allen.
No, I think that what's going to happen is they're going to trade somewhere in the neighborhood of 13, 14, whether it be to the Falcons, the Dolphins, or the Redskins, and they actually take the name that I got, I think is going to be Cleveland Farrell, defensive end from Clemson.
And I'm not opposed to that.
I think that's a name that kind of just the cachet, the idea that's been swirling in the couple years watching the Detroit Lions and their philosophy. They like guys from the SEC.
What about
Clemson?
What about
national
a guy
champs?
At that range, right? You're trading back.
I'm trading back.
So if you're trading back, what about a guy like Devin Bush from Michigan?
It's not bad. It's not a bad pick.
I mean, you're going to sure up that. I mean, look, this offseason, you went out and you got probably arguably the most impactful defensive lineman in Trey Flowers. Your linebacking core has question marks all over it, right? Jared Davis got better. I think people are still having a hard time with him and maybe aren't a huge fan. Why not go out and grab another linebacker to pair with him that flies all over the field?
See, I think they might look at that, but I think the name that's been more bantied about and has been in more mock drafts, potentially with the Lions even staying at 8, is outside linebacker Florida State Brian Burns. Yep.
Yeah.
So I say if they do trade back, the two scenarios are going to be likely Cleveland Farrell or Brian Burns.
So I've got no problem with either one of those guys.
Any scenario, cuz. Any scenario at all.
There's so much depth in this draft. It's
Could
crazy.
you entertain the Detroit Lions? All right, we're all excited. We're all thinking outside linebacker, defensive end, offensive tackle, maybe, somebody special, maybe even a wide receiver, if it's really outside chance. Could you even entertain them going up there with the 8th pick and saying, quarterback Dwayne Haskins?
Yes, all day long.
Fuck that. Oh, you got excited.
All day long.
What the fuck, bro? Come on,
All
you
day.
excited?
Yes, all day long.
Really?
Yes. Okay, I'm so glad you posed this question. All right, listen to this, all right? I believe Dwayne Haskins is going to be special. All right.
What?
I think he is going to be a special quarterback. I watched more Ohio State games than I freaking cared to. I watched this guy decimate my Michigan Wolverines. All right. There is something special about Haskins. I think he's a great pocket passer. I think he's a prototypical NFL quarterback. If you bring Dwayne Haskins and you go and grab him at 8, I'm okay with it. I know it looks weird, and I know you're like, what the hell is that going to do? Because when you draft a guy in the first round, you're expecting him to come in and make an immediate impact. You know what that immediate impact is? He's going to push Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford's now on the clock. Your time's ticking. And you know what that tells you? And you know what that sends up? That sends up a flare that, you know what? Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia aren't necessarily sold on Matt Stafford as their franchise quarterback. They're not necessarily sold on this being the answer to get this team to a Super Bowl. And you know what that is? That's a fresh take. That is a cup of cold water splashed on this organization, because forever and a day, Matt Stafford was brought in here and he's basically been given the reins. Go ahead, do whatever you want. We're going to sign you to whatever. And he's held this franchise by their balls, because nobody wants to stand up to him and say, hey, don't worry, we're not going to worry about pushing you. We're going to go get a guy like Connor Cook, right? And I know you like Connor Cook. He did a lot of good things for the Michigan State Spartans. And that's cool, right? But Connor Cook is not necessarily a starting quarterback in this league. I mean, look at what they did last year. Look at who they had backing him up. There was no way he was getting pushed. There was no way in hell anybody was taking his job. If Matt Stafford goes down with a concussion, or Matt Stafford goes down with a broken leg or a broken hand, there is no way in hell that you're winning any games. Dwayne Haskins comes in, he'll back up. He will start behind Matt Stafford. But the moment Matt Stafford starts to slip, the moment Matt Stafford starts to make a mistake here or there, guess what? The water just got turned up. The temperature in the room just got much, much warmer, because that's a guy right there who I think could be your answer. You talk about doing it in this new NFL where you got quarterbacks on their rookie deals taking you to the promised land and balling out and showing up. You like the Jared Goffs. You like the Carson Wentzes. You like these young quarterbacks that show up and do things. Well, there's your guy. That guy right there. Mark it down right now. Mark it down right. You had your hot take that there is no way in hell that
TJ. No TJ.
That Bob
no more
Quinn
TJs.
is not going to write a tight end at 8. Well, you know what? Here's my hot take for you. I think the special quarterback in this draft, the guy who is going to be impactful and who has the most upside to be elite, that's Dwayne Haskins. And if he's there at 8, I have no problem with your Detroit Lions taking him. I think it would be awesome, and I think it would be an ballsy move, and I think it would be something different. It would show that this organization isn't like every other regime that has preceded it. It would show that this regime, that Bob Quinn, that Matt Patricia, see the writing on the wall, and they know what it's going to take. And you know what? They're in tap with that new NFL, going and getting that young quarterback, putting him in the system. You know, you can look no further than Green Bay. Right? And I know where Aaron Rodgers was taken, but that's a guy who Green Bay targeted, went out and grabbed. He was sliding down the draft board, and you said, you're going to sit behind our starter. You're going to sit behind our legend in Brett Favre. And you know what? Matt Stafford, to some people out there, is a legend. He's the best quarterback we've ever had. You can't trade him away. You can't talk about it. And all that talk is crazy talk. You're an idiot if you want to trade that guy away, because he's the best thing we've ever had. The best thing since Bobby Lane, since my granddad was watching the Lions. Okay, cool. But you know what? You grab a guy who can maybe do some stuff when Matt Stafford starts messing up. And you know what? Maybe he comes in a game where the Lions are getting blown out. Maybe it's a Monday night game where they're just getting trucked by the Jets. You could throw him in there, and next thing you know, he's grabbing the coaching staff by the throat, and he's saying, you know what? You need to play me. You need me on this field. You have to have me out there. I'm better than the guy that you're giving that guaranteed money to. I'm better than that guy who's been here. I'm better than that guy who at the press conferences looks at Adam when he's asking questions like he's a total boob. I'm better than that guy right there. You need me on this field. You need to play me. And it could be Dwayne Haskins at 8. And I would have no problem whatsoever. And I think it would be a great move.
Is he your name that you want?
He's not my pound the table guy.
Who's the pound the table guy?
It's Ed Oliver.
It's
Ed Oliver. It's Ed Oliver, or it's Josh Allen. I have no problem with them trading up to get Josh Allen. But if Dwayne Haskins is there at 8, and it comes down to, do I take Dwayne Haskins or do I pick Ed Oliver? Man, that's a real tough situation to be in. And you know what? I don't think you can go wrong either way. I would have zero problem if they took Dwayne Haskins over Ed Oliver, and I'd have no problem if they took Ed Oliver over Dwayne Haskins. It's such a weird spot to be in. It really is a weird spot to be in.
So lock it down. Where are you watching it? How are you going to experience the NFL draft?
So Big Drew and Jim are having a draft party out in Grand Rapids. So,
you going out there?
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to go out there. It's a thing for all the guys on the show. I'm going to go out there. I should get
How's that going to work?
I'll finish up the show. I'm not sure if Jed's going to come in and cover my last
hour, maybe for the 5.
Yeah, last hour, maybe last half hour. I'm not really sure. I got to talk to him today to see if he wants to even do that. But either way, you cut it, right? If the show ends at 6, I can make sure I have all my producing work and all my work that I have to do for any other radio station in our cluster. I can make sure I have it all done. I can be out the door by 6 o'clock. I could be on the road. and it should maybe take me hour 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours to get there. I'll be there before the draft starts. It could work. I think it could work.
Then what? Come back home,
Yeah,
dude. That's
yeah.
nice.
It's
Road tripping.
Yeah, it's going to be a long day, but I've already got things figured out with the morning job where they're going to let me have it off so I can sleep in a little bit on Friday.
So we get the live reaction, bro. Good.
Yeah.
Make sure the video,
Should
make
be
sure the
good.
camera's good. Make sure you have it set up perfectly so that maybe take a stand so they can be on you when they make the pick. And if they call out TJ Hawkinson, you can just be like, what the fuck? Go viral, baby.
Go viral. Just
Or,
absolutely
look,
lose my shit.
Make one of the interns focus the camera on you when they do it so that they get a good shot and let it roll. And you can do a little quick editing in your own phone so that it just starts when they make the pick, your reaction, because we got to see it.
So here's the thing, right?
Could go viral.
If Josh Allen gets taken, if Ed Oliver gets taken, if Dwayne Haskins gets taken, there's a good possibility I have zero pants on and whatever
Drop
the
your
footage
pants.
is.
Well,
you just have
leave
me
your
running
drawers
around.
on, bro. Leave your drawers
I mean, there are certain standards that have to be
Okay,
upheld,
okay.
but zero pants.
Okay.
Zero pants. I have no problem running around with no pants in front of anybody. I don't care. I look at guys, I've got a small package. It's a little guy. It's a grower, not a shower. All right? And I'm okay and I'm comfortable with my own skin and I'm comfortable with my own baby wiener. All right? He does the job. Get no complaints.
Okay, quickly. We got one final
Oh,
segment.
you want to transition away from this now, huh? You don't want to talk about my baby wiener. I mean, it's like an outie belly button.
Look, I don't want to talk about
It's weird. He's cute though.
I don't want to
He's
talk
real
about the
cute.
baby part. I want to talk about the part that grew when you found out Steve Yzerman was
I had
named the
such a
general manager.
chubster.
And we all did, too.
I was
We were all
smiling.
honest. Putty, I think, had to change multiple pants, not just one.
You know what the best part is? You know what the best part is? Yeah, Putty was running on a very low tank for the entire weekend after that news on Friday last week. But
Putty had his first wet dream in like 20 years.
right? So you want to hear something funny? I love the guys I do a show with. I absolutely love them, right? Drew and Jim are awesome. Fongers is great. Brendan Riley's awesome too. He's sometimes the fill-in host. Jim sends me a text message at like, I don't know, I think like 11:15 on Friday. He's like, get us Steve Yzerman. And I'm like,
I knew it. I knew that was going to happen.
and I'm like, okay. Like, I don't know. I think these guys think that I have like all these connections, right? Like Drew wants Calvin Johnson for an interview, and I'm like, okay, well, I'll see what I can do. Like, no guarantees here, but I'll see what I can do. And I reach out to a couple people. I tried to make some things happen. I'm like,
Did you get close?
okay, cool. Yeah. So
Did you email some guy named Todd?
I did.
Okay. Did he reply back?
Yes.
He did reply?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, Adam. I don't know who the fuck you are. We can't accommodate this request.
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
It
good.
wasn't even that. So I had no idea where to even go. I was like, I have no idea who I've got to even reach out to. So Google's great. I
Yes.
sit down, I figure some things out.
Communications director.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figure out who's in charge over at for the Red Wings.
Yeah.
and I send an email out. I make a couple phone calls, send another email out, and he doesn't actually get back to me until after our show, which is cool. It's fine. I made contact with the right guy.
Okay, good.
We didn't get Steve Yzerman that day. I have a standing invitation to get Steve Yzerman on the show. Some guy named Todd was totally awesome, very
Nice.
polite.
He said, "Did he apologize? Sorry, because of
Yes.
the sheer nature of the request." I mean, Mike Valeni called, so he bumps you.
He does bump us. It was one of those things where by the time he got around to answering it and everything that they had going on, we were totally back of the line.
Yeah, of course.
And then Steve Yzerman was going to Sweden for the weekend.
Yep.
So it just timing, and I'd use finger quote, timing was bad.
Yeah.
Whatever, we've got a standing invite. We'll get him on in the next, I don't know, week or two. It'll be cool.
Nice.
So it all works out. But it's
Wait,
it's just funny because they're like, get this for us. And I'm just like,
so because of where you're stationed, it'll go through to the Grand Rapids office. You won't get to patch the call through.
No,
you won't get to hear them. Just as we are too.
I'll just kind of be there. Yeah. It'll totally be. He'll call into the hotline
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Grand Rapids.
Yep.
So yeah,
But hey, it's still Steve Yzerman talking will be great.
it'll be awesome, right?
He plays a part in the movie too. I did see the Bob Probert movie. It's real sad because of the struggles that Bob Probert had and the way his family dynamics work. But Yzerman just comes off as graceful, just in terms of how he protects his teammates.
He's flawless
What he
and
said,
fluent, and
what he
he's
said
just-
what he said at the
He's
funeral.
smooth as silk all the time.
And me and Andrew were floored because Bob Probert's dad died on the day that we got married. Not the day, the August 28th. And Bob Probert died on July 5th, which is the date of my daughter's birth. Not the,
Wow.
So it's weird too.
Some correlation there.
Yeah, not the exact years that lined up because Probert died July 5th, 2010, and my daughter was born, I think, 4 or 5 years later. But it's just unbelievable that the intricacies of how that worked out. But it's a good movie. It's an hour and a half. Imagine, go on a Tuesday. It's empty. It was like 5 people in the whole place. We got the whole place to ourselves. I enjoyed it. Free popcorn, drink prices, reasonable. It's decent. Imagine it's a good time on a Tuesday. That's where I'm
How many beers
at.
did you have?
I had a strawberry daiquiri. It goes good with popcorn. It goes good with popcorn, bro. It goes good with popcorn. It really did.
I was expecting you to be like, I had a Stella Artois.
I've been drinking.
I had a Bud Light.
No.
A strawberry daiquiri.
Red strawberry daiquiri is really good. That's my fruity drink that I like. Dude, I've been drinking whiskey sours, beers. I mix it up. You got to mix it up.
I know. You just had your first old fashioned the other day.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You fell in love. It was so
great.
good, right?
Yeah. So I
What
think
did your wife drink?
she had Tito's and vodka.
Yes.
No, she had Tito's and soda. Yeah, a little harder than I did. Man.
Yes,
Of course.
I like how you're the vagina in that relationship.
No, the ratio is you got to have 10 drinks to one
Does
fruity.
she wear the strap? Does she wear the strap on? Is that how this works?
For sure.
She fuck you. What's going on here? I love it.
So I want to ask you this.
You're so cute.
Steve Yzerman.
I love you so much.
Steve Yzerman's back.
I wish you were close. I could just pinch your cheeks. Give
Steve
you a kiss on the other one.
Yzerman's back. There's pretty good sense of rejuvenation with the franchise.
Yes, absolutely.
We're all interested.
You know what I want to talk about real quick? I'm just going to kind of derail this a little bit more. Can we talk about Ken Holland? Can we talk about how Ken Holland...
Again, I talked to Jason about this, how it was also equal parts Steve Yzerman Love Fest and kick your ass out Ken Holland party.
Because honestly, this is look, pure speculation. This is totally what I believe happened.
I don't think it was as classy as it needed to be from the fans,
Okay.
but Chris Ilitch, I think, made up for it with that presser.
Yes. Okay, this is what I believe happened. The moment that Steve Yzerman came available, right? The moment that he announced that he was stepping down as general manager of Tampa Bay, I believe Chris Ilitch was on the phone and said, hey, we want to bring you back. Take some time, think about it. We know you're going to end up coming back to Detroit. Your family still lives here. We know you want to be closer to them. Whatever it takes, we're going to make it happen. I have no problem with moving Kenny aside for you. And Steve was probably graceful as all get out because that's what Steve is. He's a total class act. Said, I appreciate it. I just made this announcement. Let me think about it. Some time goes on. You see what's going on in the playoffs. And Steve already has 1 foot out the door in Tampa Bay. He's trying to come back to Detroit. And he's like, you know what? I feel rejuvenated because I haven't had to do the grind work. I haven't had to be the GM of Tampa Bay. I've been on as a consultant. I've been bouncing back and forth to Detroit. He says, you know what? If you want me back, I have no problem coming back. That'll be awesome. I don't know how that's going to work because you just extended Kenny. So I'm not sure how this works. And Chris says, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I'll take care of all of it. Calls Kenny in the office and says, Kenny, here's the deal. This is what we're doing. I know I just extended you. God, I'm an idiot. So this is what's going to happen, and I don't give a shit what you think. I don't care how you feel. You are going to get promoted, finger quotes here. You're going to get promoted to what is he now? Senior president or to president of the Detroit Red Wings. And Steven is coming back, and Steven is going to take over the general manager role and be the vice president. And Ken was like, but what? He was like, no buts. This is what's going on. I'm putting my foot down. I'm making this decision. And I think Kenny was just left spinning like a top. And you know what? Chris Ilitch did all the right things, right? Said all the right. Look, Ken Holland was instrumental in doing this. He was the reason that Steve's here. He is part of the reason, and even Steve too. To his credit, Ken Holland's the reason that I'm here. He's the reason that I came back. He's the reason I feel comfortable taking this position. All lip gloss. It's fine. It's that shiny stuff that cute slutty girl at the park wears, and you're like, man, she is totally hot. Look at her lips; they're super glossy. I like all that. That's what all that is. It's all lip gloss, all of it. Steve Yzerman is coming back. Kenny got bumped to the side. Kenny looked like he rolled out of bed, and he just kind of threw one of his suits on that were laying on the floor. Like nobody ironed it, nobody pressed it. He looked like totally unkept. looked like he'd been maybe staying up all night, boozing it up because he's depressed. Sorry, Kenny. Sorry, bro.
How many years before the first cup? 8?
5.
Okay, between 5 and 8. I think they're in the playoffs in year 4 and 5. I think that they got to overhaul the roster. He's going to pick the right talent, and it's really odd.
Dude, I think they're in the playoffs in 2.
Do you see the similarities with how Tampa Bay kind of has evolved, like the Red Wings, where you remember the Red Wings just didn't show up to be contenders. Remember that Steve Yzerman was drafted in the 80s, and they had years of heartbreak losing to San Jose, Toronto, Colorado. It was literally 14, 15 years before the Wings started sniffing.
Winning President's Cups and being up at the very top. Yeah.
Getting to the finals and losing, and now Tampa Bay, 62 wins, heartbreak. I think Tampa Bay's on the verge. They're right there. If they can take what Steve Yzerman did and get a couple more pieces, then you got a team that could potentially win a cup.
A ton of parallels between what's going on in Tampa Bay and what happened here in Detroit, and that's why Steve Yzerman coming back to Detroit.
It's a great bridge.
Oh, my God.
I don't think it's going to go the way of Joe Dumars. I think it's going to go the way of legendary status. He'll win a cup or two, and then he'll have a job for life. Mm-hmm. He'll be firmly cemented as the guy that's in charge of the Red Wings. He'll then potentially, his imprint could be a 40 to 50-year run with an organization, starting from the time he's as a player in the 80s.
Not crazy.
Yeah, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And if he stays in that role for 20 years into his 70s, then you can imprint more in the organization by bringing up youngsters like Chris Draper or somebody else that you handpick that you think is next. His handprint could be all over that organization for a better part of 50, 60 years.
It's absolutely nuts.
Sick, right?
Some weird, gangly kid who played for the Peterborough Petes, which, by the way, if you guys ever get a chance, Google image what Steve Yzerman used to wear as his jersey when he played for the Peterborough Petes. It was awesome. They used to wear pants. Not hockey shorts like you all think, right? No. Or hockey pants like you're thinking of them, where they had the actual shorts and they wear the knee highs. No. They actually wore pants back in the day. Awesome. The jerseys are incredible. The whole get-up was awesome. Some weird gangly kid that they picked up in 1983 because they couldn't get Pat LaFontaine, because that was who they were targeting. They wanted the hometown kid. Instead, they go with this dude. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Great podcast. I can't wait to see, and I can't wait for next week. Next week, guys, episode 300. We'll try to do something big. We'll try, hey, Adam, give me fucking Matthew Stafford.
Sure, I'll get right on that.
Okay,
I'll get right on that.
Episode 300 will drop. Adam's going to deliver.
I'll get right on that for you. See what I can do.
Fuck it. I want Matt Patricia.
Okay.
Let's ask him some tough questions.
All right. Honestly, I think I have better connections with the Detroit Lions than I do with the Detroit Red Wings.
Let's do it.
So maybe.
All right, here we go.
These guys, get this for me. All right, guys.
All right.
Sure. My head's swarming and spinning. Like, all right, I'll figure it out.
Bro, just say okay and get on it. That's all you can do.
That's all I do.
Just say okay.
That's what I tell them. I say okay, and I try to make it work.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski.
Like, I'm connected like Dub and Mac 10. Come on.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John McAroon. Thank you so much for downloading, interacting with this podcast. We love it. Go to the Flick application. Go find the invite link. Remember, it's special invite only at this time, and all the members can interact with the podcast and have a good time. I can't wait for next week. Episode 300 will drop. Thanks, everybody, for your support. We'll see everybody next time.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.